A quiet day begins in a medieval town. Bread warms, bells wait, and the streets remember every step. Settle in, let the small sounds carry you to sleep. Before the sun climbs fully above the rooftops, the town square is already awake. Its cobbles are slick with night mist. Thin smoke curls from early fires. Somewhere a church bell tolls prime, its soft echo rolling over tiles and timber. In the hush between night and bustle, you can feel the bones of a medieval town, the web of streets all leading to this open heart, where trade, talk, and justice meet. The square is wide but uneven, edged by tall timber-framed houses whose upper stories lean forward as though curious. Beneath their shadow, stalls and carts stand ready. Some merchants arrived in dark bakers carrying warm loaves, the scent already drifting. Butchers sharpening knives with slow rasp. A cheesemonger setting wheels of pale and gold on plank table. Cloth merchants unroll bolts of wool dyed blue or madder red, their colors catching first light. Watermen clatter in with buckets from the town well. Washerwomen spread damp linen to air on ropes strung between posts. A boy scatters straw to soften ground for animals. Pigs squeal in pens near butchery corner. Geese mutter in wicker cages. An old woman arranges herbs in baskets. Sage, thyme, fennel, each tied with twine and damp to stay fresh. The air smells of yeast, smoke, wet stone, and faint spice. Guild apprentices appear soon after dawn, grey-cloaked and yawning. A tanner's boy shoulders heavy leather hides, blacksmith's lad wheels barrow of nails and ironware. From narrow alleys come coopers with barrels, potters with glazed jugs, candlemakers balancing trays of tallow dips. Each greets friends and rivals with nod or jest. Each knows where his master's pitch is laid. On one side of square stands market cross or simple stone pillar, symbol that trade here is lawful and blessed. Some towns add wooden shelter, a covered market hall where measures checked and oaths sworn. Close by rises town hall or Guildhall, sturdy in stone or timber, its bell to summon council or warn fire. Across square, the church lifts spire or tower, bells measuring morning hours. Together these buildings frame market's life. By mid-morning, carts rumble in from countryside. Farmers bring eggs, butter packed in cool moss, root vegetables, woven baskets. Millers trundle sacks of flour. Foresters bring faggots of firewood. Some peasants carry geese or rabbits alive, legs bound. They pay toll at gate or to market officer who measures and stamps with town seal. Each hopes for good price before competition crowds in. Bargaining begins early and lasts all day. Housewives pinch cabbages, weigh cheese with practiced hand. Merchants argue over bolt lengths. Children clutch coins for sweets or gingerbread. Bells mark hours, prices rise and fall with sun. Shouts mix with laughter, squeal of pigs, creak of carts. Dogs scavenge dropped scraps, cats stalk pigeons near grain stalls. Smells grow rich as cooking starts. Pie sellers set up small charcoal braziers. Hot meat and onion scent wafts. Honey cakes and spiced nuts lure children. Fishmongers cry wares, their stalls wet and glistening. Salt tang mixes with river damp. Alewives arrive with small casks, ladling cups to thirsty market-goers. Along edges of square, craftsmen work in open view. Cobblers fit shoes, tailors stitch hems, scribes offer letter writing to illiterate customers. It only bind, but make a living workshop under sky. Minstrels may play fiddle or sing for coin. Jugglers perform to gather crowd. Order matters. Town officials, beadles or sergeants patrol with staves, keeping lanes clear, measuring bread and ale to ensure fairness. The assize of bread and ale protects buyers, cheating bakers risk stocks. Fights sometimes spark when prices disputed or theft attempted. Watchmen step in swiftly. Stocks or pillory stand near, cross as reminder, sometimes already holding petty thief. Faith threads through commerce. Priests walk among stalls, blessing trade, or friars beg alms. At certain hours bells pause market chatter as many cross themselves and murmur prayer. On saints' feast days the square fills not only with merchants, but with pageants, banners, relics brought out to bless town and goods alike. Season shapes everything. Spring markets burst with greens, lambs, and early cloth shipments. Summer swells with grain, fruit, and pilgrims passing through. Autumn richest with harvest goods and long fairs. Winter quieter but busy near Christmas with candles, fish, dried fruits, and gifts. Weather sets tone too. Muddy chaos in rain, cheerful dust in sun, sudden hush when snowflakes fall. Behind stalls lie networks of power. Guilds control who may sell and at what price. Apprentices hope for promotion. Merchants guard secrets of dye or trade routes. Town council levies taxes. Lord or bishop may claim share. Deals struck quietly at ale benches shape next season's market and even local politics. Yet for ordinary folk, the square is heartbeat of social life. Friends meet, lovers glimpse each other across baskets of apples, children chase chickens, gossip flows faster than goods, who wed, who quarreled, which harvest failed, what rumors from court or war. News outruns messengers here, carried in every bargain. By late afternoon, trade slows. Farmers count coins and begin home empty baskets swing from arms. Craftsmen pack tools, street sweepers shovel scraps to pigs. Shadows lengthen across cobbles, bell towers gild with sunset. A final round of bread or pie sold to latecomers, a last mug of ale drained. Evening brings change. Stalls close, but square does not sleep. Young folk linger, singing or playing games. Children kick rag balls. Older men smoke and talk. Watchmen light lanterns on posts or carry through lanes. Dogs roam sniffing leftover bones. Sometimes council meets in hall, its windows glowing. Sometimes preacher mounts cross to speak to night crowd. As dark deepens, doors shutter, lights glow behind shutters, the once busy heart quiets except for patrolling watch and distant bell marking curfew. Tomorrow it will wake again, just as lively, tying farm to city, merchant to peasant, news to ear, and bread to hungry hand. So when you think of medieval towns, imagine first the square at dawn, mist lifting, stalls rising, smells and cries weaving a living web of trade and talk. It is the soul of civic life, humble, noisy, full of hope, where centuries of buying, selling, and meeting began each day. In every medieval settlement, large or small, one smell told of comfort and daily life more than any other: the warm, nutty scent of fresh bread. It drifted across lanes and fields each morning, rising from the village bakehouse, a humble but vital heart where grain became food and neighbors met before the day's work began. Many cottages had small hearths, but few could afford the wood or skill to bake well. Most relied on the communal oven, tended by a baker who knew fire as well as any smith knew iron. Often the bakehouse stood near green or market, a sturdy building of stone or brick to withstand heat. Its great oven, dome-shaped and deep, was built of clay or brick, heated first with blazing logs until walls glowed and embers turned white. Then coals were swept aside, and dough slid into shimmering heat on long-handled peel. Before dawn, the baker was awake. He fed the fire, judging temperature by hand and eye. A sprinkle of flour that browned just so told him oven ready. Around him waited troughs of dough, coarse rye or barley for poor, wheat if harvest was kind or family wealthy. Dough was heavy, dark with bran, sometimes flavored with herbs, onion, or bits of lard. He kneaded with strong arms, sweat mixing with flour dust, and shaped loaves marked by small cuts or family signs. Villagers arrived early, baskets on hips, each with lump of dough mixed at home. Some women came still yawning, babies bundled against chill. Boys carried sacks of coarse grain to be ground by nearby mill. The bakehouse buzzed with greetings and gossip, news of weather, births, harvest, and trouble. As baker raked embers and nodded, each person slid dough inside or paid him to do so, trusting his skill with fire. For those without fuel, the shared oven was blessing. Wood cost dear, and smoke laws sometimes forbade too many household fires. Communal baking saved fuel and kept bread steady for whole hamlet. It was also a place of meeting. Strangers learned names. Children played while parents waited. Midwives and reeves shared news here. Even small deals struck as loaves baked. Inside the bakehouse, air grew hot and fragrant, walls darkened with soot, light slanted through high, small window, coals hissed when water spilled. The baker, face ruddy, moved with practiced rhythm, peel loaves in, sweep ash, close heavy wooden door, tying each batch by sun or sense. No clock but his trained instinct, he knew when crust ready, by smell alone. Payment came in coins, or sometimes bread itself. Baker might keep one loaf for every dozen, or charge fee called ovenright owed to lord. In some manors, peasants required to use lord's oven and pay portion, the banal ovenright adding to village economy. Despite grumbles, this kept oven maintained and safe. Loaves emerged golden or dark, crackling as they cooled on racks. Simple rounds for poor, pletted or scored for feast days, rich manchet bread white and fine for lordly table. Children waited eager for crust ends. Workers grabbed warm loaf to eat with cheese in field. Feast days meant spiced buns, honeyed rolls, or breads shaped as animals or saints. Bread was more than food, it was life. Harvest failure meant hunger and unrest. Full granaries meant peace. A baker who cheated on weight or flour risked heavy fine or public shame. Markets tested loaves for fairness. Priests blessed first bread of new grain. Bread also served as plate, trencher under stew or meat, eaten after juices soaked in. Season flavored baking. Winter loaves were dense and dark, mixed with peas or beans to stretch flour. Spring brought first fresh grains milled after fasting, joyful lighter bread for Easter. Summer gave plenty, but also risk of fire, bakers careful with dry timbers. Autumn smelled of new harvest, barns full, ovens busy from dawn to dusk. Stories and songs surrounded Bakehouse. Children sang rhymes about bold bakers. Legends told of saint saving bread from burning or devil stealing loaf left unblessed. In some villages, unmarried girls peeking into oven on special feast might glimpse future husband's shadow. Simple superstitions tied daily bread to luck and love. Not all was peaceful. Sometimes quarrels flared, accusations of underbaking, stealing heat, or skipping fee. Baker wielded wooden peel like staff to keep order, but most days passed in warmth and laughter, punctuated by hiss of steam and thud of peel. Evenings, when work done, Baker banked coals, cleaned floor, and perhaps baked small cakes for his own family. His hands always flour-dusted, shoulders strong from kneading. He lived modest but respected. Few trades touched every stomach daily. Travelers loved village bakehouses too. Smell drew them in. A coin-bought warm loaf, comfort on road. Pilgrims carried bread blessed at shrines. Soldiers filled packs with hard biscuit that kept weeks. In towns, bakers' guilds held power. In villages, single baker was vital friend. At night, the oven cooled slowly, radiating gentle heat. Cats curled near, last light faded. Tomorrow would begin again before dawn, with flour and fire and quiet service that fed whole community. So when you imagine medieval food, think first of this place, smoky, fragrant, full of talk and patience. The village bakehouse kept hunger at bay and hearts connected, loaf by loaf, day after long day. At the very edge of the town, where the cobbled streets meet the river's steady current, stands a bridge of ancient stone. Its arches rise with quiet grace, moss tucked into their crevices, and its worn surface bears the smooth polish of countless footsteps. Each day it carries wagons, riders, and wandering souls across the slow green water, yet it seems unhurried, content to watch the flow of life pass over and beneath its span. At dawn the bridge wakes to the sound of wheels and hooves. Farmers come first, their carts piled high with hay or sacks of grain. The animals snort and stamp, steam curling from their muzzles in the chill air. Ferrymen, idle now, lean against their poles and watch with mild envy, for when the water runs low and calm, the bridge takes most of their trade. Still, some travelers prefer a quiet float and will seek them out later. From the town side, guards in half-polished mail take their post by a small gatehouse. They nod to familiar faces and inspect strangers with calm but watchful eyes. A toll is collected from merchants carrying goods for sale, small coins dropped into a wooden box, noted by a scribe who sits at a desk just inside the shelter. Most pay without complaint, though now and then a grumble rises and is swiftly silenced by a glance from the taller guard. As the sun lifts higher, the bridge becomes lively. Tradesmen cross on foot, balancing baskets of wares or shouldering bundles of firewood. A butcher leads a fattened pig on a rope, its squeals echoing across the water. Children chase one another along the low parapet until a guard shouts good-naturedly to keep them from tumbling in. Dogs trot at their master's heels, tails wagging, pause to sniff where yesterday's travellers spilled grain or fruit. Below, the river moves with patient strength. Its surface ripples green and brown, reflecting bits of sky between drifting leaves. Flat-bottomed boats hug the banks, loaded with barrels or firewood, while small fishing craft slip quietly toward deeper water. Now and then a ferryman calls up to the bridge, offering a ride to someone who fears heights or simply craves a gentler pace. The splash of poles and the creak of ropes mingle with the echo of footsteps above. On the far side of the bridge, the road bends toward fields and forests. Travelers appear from that misty distance, pilgrims with staffs and scrips, merchants with laden mules, wandering minstrels who sing as they walk. Some stop midway across to gaze at the town's rooftops rising beyond the gate, spires catching the sun. Others hurry on, eager for the promise of warm food and safe lodging. Mid-morning brings a steady flow of life. A tanner's boy trots across with skins draped over his back. A brewer's cart clatters by with barrels bound for a nearby manor. A noble's carriage crosses slowly, its wheels rattling on the stones, while the guards bow slightly as it passes. Dust rises and falls with each step and hoofbeat, drifting down toward the water below. The toll house is never still. The scribe sharpens his quill and bends to his ledger, recording names, trades, and payments. Guards murmur to each other, keeping an eye on the crowd. Sometimes a stranger asks for directions, and they answer with brisk courtesy. Other times they step forward to settle a quarrel, two merchants disputing whose cart has right of way, or a drover coaxing a stubborn cow from blocking traffic. By midday, the sun warms the stones and the bridge becomes almost pleasant to linger on. A fisherman props his pole against the parapet, hoping for luck in the shallows where the current slows. Lovers stroll hand in hand, pause to watch the water sparkle. A peddler lays out ribbons and trinkets on a cloth, selling to those who cannot resist a small gift on the road home. The guards watch but do not interfere. They know that quiet trade harms no one. Down by the bank, children wade where the water runs shallow. Their laughter drifts upward, joining the creak of wagons and the occasional whinny of a horse. A washerwoman beats linen on the stones, her arms strong and steady, while another spreads clean cloth to dry on the grass. Ferrymen nap in their boats, hats tipped low, waiting for the rare traveler who prefers water to stone. In the afternoon, a minstrel arrives from the road and takes a seat upon the low wall. He tunes a lute and begins a gentle tune, something about far-off loves and distant hills. Passers-by drop coins into his cap, some pausing to listen, others content to let the music follow them across. The gods allow it. Music, after all, softens even a long day's watch. Sometimes excitement stirs. A noble's hunting party returns with hounds and deer slung across saddles, filling the bridge with barking and chatter. A troop of soldiers passes, armor clinking, banners snapping in the wind. Everyone steps aside respectfully as they go. Once in a while, a traveling wagon breaks a wheel on the uneven stones, and half the bridge gathers to help lift and mend it, laughing and swearing in equal measure. Toward evening, the day's work slows. Farmers return with empty carts, their faces weary but satisfied. Merchants count their earnings as they cross back toward home. The minstrel has moved on, but a potter now sits where he played, selling small jugs and cups to those who fancy a last purchase before the gate closes. The river glows gold with the sinking sun, and shadows stretch long across the stones. The guards relax a little, but remain watchful. They know that dusk could bring mischief. Pickpockets follow travelers, beggars hoping for coins before the gate shuts. They keep a steady presence, greeting friends and warning off trouble with calm authority. The scribe closes his ledger and stretches cramped fingers, rubbing ink stains from his skin. A final flurry of travelers comes before nightfall. A merchant caravan, bells jingling on the mules. A lone rider cloaked in dust, galloping to reach the town before curfew. Each is waved through with brisk efficiency. The toll chest is locked, the quill wiped clean, and the guards shift from collecting coins to simply watching the road. When the bell in the distant square tolls the hour, the gatekeeper steps forward and calls the last warning. The great wooden doors are drawn slowly shut, their iron bands creaking as they meet. The bridge grows quieter at once. Only the river remains lively, whispering under the arches as it has for centuries. Night deepens. Lanterns are lit along the bridge's span, their soft glow dancing on wet stone. A few late fishermen linger, hopeful for one last catch, while the ferrymen tie up their boats and head home. The guards walk their rounds, boots echoing, voices low. Overhead stars appear, mirrored in the dark sweep of water below. By full night, the bridge is nearly deserted. A dog crosses alone, nose to the ground, perhaps on its way to a warm kitchen. The toll house stands dark except for a single candle in the scribe's window, where he finishes one last line before bed. The river slides on, carrying secrets and reflections toward far-off lands. Yet even in stillness, the bridge remains alive in quiet ways. It holds the day's footsteps, the laughter and quarrels, the small exchanges of coin and kindness. Tomorrow it will feel them all again, the tramp of boots, the creak of carts, the sweet strains of some new minstrel's tune. Strong and patient, it binds town to road and people to one another, a steadfast span across tide as well as water. Step away from the noisy square and follow a narrow lane lined with timbered houses and small workshops. At its end stands a heavier, prouder building, the Guildhall. Here, behind carved doors and tall windows, the lifeblood of the medieval town is organized, protected, and celebrated. For the craftsman or merchant, this isn't just an office. It is the beating heart of trade, honor, and shared fate. The Guildhall's shape depends on wealth, but always it shows quiet authority. In some towns it is stone, with arched entry and carved shields showing tools of the trade, a shoemaker's knife, a weaver's shuttle, a hammer and tongs. In others it is timber frame yet grand, with wide porch where notices are nailed and deals struck in shadow of its roof. Flags may flutter bearing guild emblem, a painted wheel, a golden key, or simple initials. Step inside and smell polish, wool, beeswax, and old smoke. The hall is long and high, rafters dark with age. Benches line walls, a raised dais holds great chair for guildmaster. Windows are few but high, light falls in bars across plank floor. Shields, banners, or painted boards proclaim the craft's history. Perhaps a carved chest stands near, heavy with charters and precious seal that marks all official business. This space, is it idle? It is courtroom, school, feast hall, and bank all in one. Here apprentices are sworn, masters examined, disputes judged, prices fixed. The guild keeps measures honest, a standard loaf, an official ell for cloth, a marked weight for spice or metal. To cheat these is to risk fine or expulsion. On ordinary mornings, clerks sit at table copying accounts or charters. Journeymen arrive to pay dues. Masters bring complaints or proposals. The air hums with talk of trade. Which dye merchant has best madder? Which road's unsafe? Who has invented clever loom or safer lock? Decisions ripple outward to every shop and stall. When an apprentice is bound to a master, ceremony happens here. The boy, sometimes girl, kneels or bows. Parents pay small fee and promise obedience. Guild master blesses tools, needle, plane, knife. Oaths sworn to work hard, keep secrets, respect craft. Records inked into thick register. From that day, child belongs to this brotherhood. Years later, the same hall sees masterpiece judged. Journeyman presents work, shoe without flaw, chest with perfect joinery, cloth evenly woven, lock cunningly made. Elders lean close, measuring, tapping, murmuring. If approved, journeyman becomes master, free to open own shop and take apprentices. It is a moment of pride, often followed by feast. Discipline too plays out here. If baker cheats on weight, if tanner pollutes stream, if locksmith sells secrets, he may be fined, shamed, or barred. Stocks may stand outside door. Sometimes offender must parade through square. Honor matters, for guild reputation binds all members together. Feasting transforms hall. Long tables set with bread, cheese, roasted meat, barrels of ale or wine tapped, candles lit in iron chandeliers. Songs of the craft echo under rafters, sometimes solemn, sometimes merry with fiddles and pipes. On Saints' Feast, often the patron of the trade, Mass said first, then procession through streets with banners, then great meal. Here masters advise younger men, marriages arranged, alliances forged. Guild charity shines too. Chests hold funds to aid widows, care for sick, bury dead. When fire ruins a workshop, guild may rebuild. When member jailed unjustly, they may pay bail or plead case. Orphans of masters might be apprenticed to others free of charge. Through guild, craft becomes family beyond blood. Wider power stirs here as well. Guilds lobby town council, influencing laws on tolls or market rights. Wealthy guilds lend money to princes or bishops. Some raise militias when city threatened, their banners to decide politics. Their masters may serve as mayors. Beneath humble tools lies quiet might. Education blooms under guild roof. Young members taught not only craft, but letters, numbers, and law. Some halls keep small libraries of trade secrets, pattern books, or foreign weights. Travelers returning from fairs share tales of distant fashion and invention, widening every year's horizon. The Guildhall is also a sanctuary of pride, tools polished and displayed, great seals guarded, charters treasured as proof of rights won against lords or kings. Here artisans remember they are not serfs but skilled men and women whose labor shapes town's wealth. Festivals parade this pride with banners and embroidered hoods, each trade marching behind its master to church and back, drums and trumpets sounding. At night, the hall grows quiet but not lifeless. Lamps burn low while clerks tally accounts, watchmen pace outside. Sometimes secret council meets to plan price rises or defend against rival guild. Sometimes a poor craftsman sleeps by fire after long journey, safe under Brotherhood's roof. When you think of medieval city, think not only of Lord's castle or Bishop's palace, but of this guild hall, sturdy, busy, proud. Here ordinary hands found strength in unity, here craft became power. Here a town's very identity was forged, one oath, one masterpiece, one shared meal at a dime. At the center of the town, where streets draw toward one another like threads to a spindle, rises the church tower. Its stone is old and weather-mellowed, patched here and there with newer blocks that shine a paler gray. In morning light, the tower looks almost gentle, but up close, it is a thing of strength. Deep-set slits for windows, a narrow door of oak bound in iron, and the faint ring marks on the step where countless feet have turned in and out. At its crown, shuttered arches hold the dark mouths of bells that have spoken to the town for longer than anyone living can remember. Before dawn, when the streets still dream and frost sits in the seams of the cobbles, Aldrich the bellman comes with a lantern. He keeps its flame cupped with one palm against the breeze that slides down from the roofs. His cloak smells faintly of smoke and rain. His boots know every hidden dip in the worn stair. He touches the oak door as one greets an old friend and fits the iron key into its familiar bite. The tower receives him with a soft groan as it opens, stone waking to the day's first footfalls. Inside, the tower air is cool and smells of dust, damp lime, and old rope. The lantern glow finds motes that drift like slow snow, stirring as the door closes. A narrow stair curls upward against the wall, its treads cupped by centuries. Aldrich begins to climb. His left hand knows each stone of the central pier. His right hand keeps the lantern steady. The sound in the stairwell is his breathing, the leather whisper of his cloak, and once, far above, the small iron shiver of a bell settling in its sleep. At the first landing he pauses to set the lantern on a niche and lift a shutter. A thin square of damp blue morning leans into the tower. From here he can see the thatch of the alewife's house, beaded with dew, and the long dark line of the river beyond the bridge. He listens. Somewhere a baker's boy rattles a bucket. Somewhere a dog shakes off the night. The town is stirring, and the hour must be told. He climbs again, passing the clock room where a wooden face and iron hands will later mark the noon. The mechanism hums faintly even at this hour, a patient tick that belongs as much to the tower as the sparrows in its eaves. Aldrich glances at the balance, sets a small weight with 2 practiced turns of the screw, and moves on. Higher, the stair opens to the chamber of ropes, and from the darkness there breathes the dry, clean smell of hemp. Here hang the bell ropes, each threaded through the floor to the loft above. They are thick as a wrist at the base, furred smooth by palms, each finished with a woolly sally plaited in colored yarn to tell it from its neighbors. Aldrich touches them one by one as if greeting a small company. St. Michael's deep tongue, the mid-bell for work hours, the quick little angel bell that runs ahead of the rest. He takes his place, feet set, breath measured, and wraps his hands around the first rope. The first pull is a conversation with weight. The rope yields and then tugs back, and above wood and iron begin their slow swing. The tower hears this before the town does. Its stones take the tremor like a heartbeat. On the second pull, a sound gathers down the rope rise of a note not yet born, and then, with the third, the bell finds its voice. The hour strikes, 1, then 2, then 3, slow and round, rolling over rooftops like warm bread scent from an oven. Bells speak in more than numbers. Aldrich knows the measure for feast days, the urgency for fire, the long sorrow for a funeral when every stroke falls with the weight of a name. He knows the merry peal for a wedding when all the ropes are given to willing hands and the chamber shakes with joy. But the dawn hour is a simple speech. Be steady, be ready, take up the work the day brings. The bell's sound travels down lanes, along the river, and out across plowland just greening under the sky. When the last resonance breaks against the tower walls and slides into silence, Aldrich coils the rope neatly at his feet and lifts his lantern again. His hands have the faint burn of hemp in them and smell of dust and wool. He climbs 1 level higher to the bell loft, pushing open a door that sticks when the wood swells with mist. The loft air is colder. Pigeons have left a few white signatures in awkward corners, and a swath of feathers tells of a hawk's swift visit last week. The bells hang like sleeping animals, their bellies dark and glossed in places by fingers and weather. Aldrich runs a hand along the lip of the great bell and feels the shallow nicks of long ago repairs the low seam where the founder's skill turned molten metal into voice. He checks the clapper straps, wooden headstocks, the pins where iron meets oak, a drop of oil on a pivot, a twist of cord where a fray begins, small attentions that keep the bells honest. In the open shutters daylight grows, showing a pale east and roofs like wet scales. He steps out onto the narrow gallery that rings the loft, one hand on the rail. Here the town lies open like a child asleep. Chimney smoke no more than smudges, the Guildhall roof silver with dew, the square holding its breath before feet and hooves claim it. Downriver the mill wheel is still. Upriver a field shows lines laid for spring sowing, a pattern only the height reveals. Aldrich breathes the cold and lets his gaze rest in each quarter before returning to his task. When wind comes, it lives here first. It threads the shutters and combs the rope tails and sets the tower to a faint, unthreatening hum. On winter nights it'd make the bells mutter though they do not move. Aldrich, who has climbed in storms and in the thick hush of snow, listens to wind with respect. He has known a jolt of lightning to drum through the stone and make the farthest windows jump. He has known warm summer air that lifted swallows through the arches and set them to season-long conversations with the bells. Below the loft, in the room with narrow slit for light, sits the tower's small store. Lumps of tallow, coils of spare cord, 2 wedges for the headstocks, a basket with rags, a bit of beeswax for a stubborn pin. A shelf holds a book that keeps the bell ledger, names of ringers, the occasions, the times when weather required a change. Aldrich's script slopes like a hillside, steady and brown. He adds the morning entry with a stub of quill, blowing on the line where the ink pools. As the town wakes, so too does the stair. Footsteps will come later. The sacristan with candles to place before the morning. Office, the priest, climbing with him sometimes to look upon the roofs and the weather. On holy days, boys come to pull the small angel bell in patterns they learn by laughter and correction. 2 strokes and rest, 3 and swing. Careful now, mind your hands. For now the tower is Aldrich's alone, and he takes the quiet as a gift. He goes down to the halfway landing where a little window shows the lane behind the chantry. A cat sits on a barrel, washing its face with solemn gravity. A woman opens her door and shakes a cloth into the weak sun. Steam lifts in threads from her pail. Aldrich smiles at these small signs and descends to the ringing floor for the next duty of the morning. The work bell that tells the craftsman the hour is turned. This one is brisker, a pattern that runs like a quick messenger through the streets. At the rope he sets his feet and gives the pull its spring. The mid-bell answers with a cheerful round note, lighter than the hour bell but with a soft belly to it. Aldrich shapes it into the known call, quick, quick, pause beat that sends shutters opening and doors unbarred. He can almost see the life it wakes, the smith lifting his hammer to its first strike, the weaver's shuttle taking up its dance, the potter setting a hand steady on the wheel. When the pattern finishes, the bell's last smile lingers in the dust and slips away. He takes his bread on the stair, a coarse heel split and rubbed with a crumb of cheese, saved from last night, eaten standing with his shoulder against stone. He chews slowly, listening for what the tower tells him. A change in the small tick of the clock's gut string, a rope that sings a little sharper where it rubs. He feels the day settling into its course. The lantern on the niche burns low and he pinches it out, trusting morning to finish the light. By mid-morning, the sun finds the east face of the tower and warms the stone to a faint sweetness. Aldrich opens the higher shutters to give the chamber air. He uncoils a rope and lets it lie in loose loops to ease the twist it has held since winter's wet. He tests the clappers by hand, moving each only an inch, feeling the weight his arms know so well. A lark, a mad fool of a creature, wheels up from the square to peep at the strange dark mouths and then skirls away, leaving a feather caught on a splinter of rail. He frees it and tucks it under the ledger's cover. Below, the square is no longer empty. A girl whose hair plait shines like new straw rushes with a basket toward the baker. An old man carries a stool under his arm and sets himself at the well to tell the day's first stories to any who will listen. A pair of merchants measure each other with eyes polite and cold. Aldrich, who has never been much for bargaining, feels grateful for a life where the day's measure is made in sound. When noon comes, it comes with promise of meat steaming in kitchens and of rest. Aldrich takes the great rope of St. Michael once more. He draws breath and gives the bell its 12. Between each stroke he lets the sound finish its travel, counting in the slow space where the town breathes. In far streets, people lift their heads to hear how far the hour has gone. In the fields, men stand straight and look toward the tower, though they cannot see it. After the 12th, the air holds a moment of fullness like the top of a hill, and then slips downhill toward afternoon. Visitors sometimes climb at noon when the sacristan allows. Today, 2 children with round eyes step carefully behind their mother onto the gallery. Aldrich keeps them close, shows them the ropes, not to touch. Mine names the bells as if introducing old friends. The children whisper, and their breath makes small ghosts in the cool. He tells them, because they have asked, that the bells tasted the sky in a storm long ago and rang themselves without a hand. He tells them he once watched a flock of swifts turn all at once in the bell's echo and vanish like thrown soot. They stare into the mouth of St. Michael with reverence. Afternoon lays a hand of warmth on the stone. The clock ticks its steady thread, and Aldrich mends a splice where the rope has grown thin. He works with a sailor's patience, unlay, lay, twist, smooth, wax. He ties a stopper knot at the end where careless hands might have lost it. He oils a pinion in the clock with a drop barely visible, then wipes away the extra, because too much kindness can be its own harm. He rests with his back to the pier, and lets the tower's faint hum climb into his bones. If rain comes, he will close the shutters and the world will go soft and near. If wind comes, he will listen to the whale song in the arches and remember the winter of deep snows, when he had to climb every hour to knock ice from the bell's lips. Today is temperate. The sparrows peck at lime crumbs by the sill and scold him as if the tower were theirs. Aldrich's mouth remembers a psalm, and he hums a line without thinking, and the tower takes the tune and holds it like a secret. Late in the day, a small procession below catches his eye. A bier with a single white cloth, 2 candles, 4 slow men. The priest's voice carries only as far as the square's edge, but Aldrich knows the shape of those words. He descend. In the rope chamber he takes the mourning rope wrapped thicker to speak more gently, and draws the bell 3 times slow, 3 times slow, 3 times slow. The sound falls like steady rain. Women in doorways bow their heads, men pull caps low. The tower becomes a throat for the town's sorrow, and Aldrich is careful with the weight of it. When the bier has passed, he hangs the rope back in its place and stands a moment, with his hand resting on the woolen grip. He has a small pouch of salt and a heel of bread in his pocket. He eats, thinking of evenings when grief recedes to the edges of rooms, but never quite leaves. Slowly the tower room warms again to the ordinary. Distant laughter reaches him from the tavern door as someone opens it for a breath. The scent of stew coys of a lane and is lost. Vesper's bell belongs more to the priest than to the town, but Aldrich loves it too. Its pattern is patient and thoughtful. He climbs once more as the west reddens. Shadows of the bell braces stretch long across the planks. The rope fur brushes his knuckles. He rings in the measured speech that tells the church to gather and tells the streets that day is folding itself away. Even those who do not go to prayer tidy their stalls and turn their feet homeward when they hear it. At last the day's work thins to small tasks. He checks again the clock's great weight and sets its pall to the next fall. He folds 2 sackcloths, brushes a line of dust from a sill, writes a last note in the ledger about the splice. He sweeps a few pigeon feathers toward a corner, so he may carry them down in the morning. The bell ropes hang resting now, their tails like sleepy cattle in a byre. Dusk fills the stair and the gallery windows dim to pewter. Down in the lanes voices are fewer. The candlelight in windows walks the walls like tame fire. Aldrich stands on the gallery and takes the town in once more. The miller's boy fetching water, the cooper's yard with hoops stacked like moons, the bridge holding its stone breath over the river's last gleam. He lifts his cap in an old habit no one taught him and no one sees. Curfew is the last duty, and it carries a different weight from morning's call. It says not wake but rest. Aldrich takes the rope of the great bell and draws the slow wind strokes, leaving room between for the sound to find every tucked-away place. Cats pause, ears pricked. A child turns in his bed and lets go the day's last fret. A woman at a hearth eases her hands from the dough and sets the lid on for morning's rise. The bell speaks, and the town answers with shutters and latches, with banked fires and quieter breath. When the sound has gone as far as it can and faded beyond his hearing, Aldrich coils the rope for the night. He descends by lantern light once more, hand on stone, feet sure as always. At the door he sets the iron bar and checks it twice, then blows the lantern out so the tower's dark may be complete. Outside, the square is a map of small islands of flame and small pools of dark. The tower stands behind him like a resting animal. He walks home by the lane that smells of old wood and damp lime. Those he passes lift a hand, and he lifts his. No one speaks loudly. The day has been said and answered, and night now is a cup to drink from quietly. Aldrich thinks of the bells above him in their nests of oak and iron, the ropes sleeping, the clock's heart taking its careful, invisible steps toward midnight. In his small room he eats a stew warmed on coals and a heel of bread with a scrape of fat. He washes his hands in a bowl and looks at the faint red burns the rope left in his palms, the little hairs of hemp caught like yellow threads. He rubs a smear of beeswax into the skin, and it eases. He lies down, hearing in the bone of his head the memory of the day's notes strung like beads. Dawn, work, noon, sorrow, prayer, rest. When sleep takes him, it is with the sense of height and air and the steady companionship of stone. The tower holds the town and is held by it in return. Tomorrow, Aldrich will wake and climb, and the bells will speak again as they always have, voices of metal and wood and wind carrying through lanes, across water and into fields, telling of I and of belonging. For now the night closes around the tower and the town alike, and all things are measured by the slow, kind silence between the strokes. Before sunrise, when roosters still doze and only a thin silver mist hangs across the fields, one sound sometimes stirs first, the hollow sigh of a leather bellows. It comes from a low stone workshop near the crossroads, where a faint orange glow leaks between shutters. This is the village forge, a place of warmth and metal, of sweat and steady rhythm. To live in a medieval village is to know this place well. You may be a farmer, a miller, a brewer, a shepherd. All roads lead here when something breaks or must be made. The blacksmith is not merely a tradesman. He is part mechanic, part engineer, part quiet guardian of the community's strength. Fire before dawn. The smith wakes before most folk. His cottage, usually attached to the forge itself, smells of smoke and warm bread left by wife or daughter. Outside, stars fade as he crosses to his hearth. Last night's coals may still hold a whisper of heat. If so, he stirs them with practiced care. If that, he strikes flint to steel, catching spark on dry moss. Soon the fire takes, feeding on charcoal he has stored all year. Charcoal is precious. In spring and autumn, woodcutters burn oak and beech in slow, smothered piles to create it, a smoky labor the smith often oversees. Without charcoal, his fire would burn too cool for iron. He tends the bellows, great leather lungs hinged to a beam, pumping air until the heart of his forge glows white. Sparks leap upward like small fireflies, and shadows jitter across the timbered walls. The forge smells different from any other place. Sweet, dry charcoal, acrid iron scale, damp leather, a faint tang of oil. To step inside at dawn is to enter another world, half workshop, half cavern of flame. Tools of the trade. Every tool has its spot. The anvil, massive, iron face, squats at the center like an altar. Hammers hang nearby, cross peen for drawing metal, ball peen for rounding, straight peen for edging. Tongs of every length line the wall, each shaped to grip some particular stock. Hardy tools fit the anvil's square hole, swages, fullers, cutters. Beside the fire stand buckets, one of water for quench it, one of oil for slow cooling, and sometimes a tub of sand to catch sparks or temper blades. The smith knows his tools like friends. Each bears scars of long use. Each fits his hand's memory. Apprentices are taught first to clean and return them in perfect order, for a smith's rhythm falters if he must search when metal is white hot. Morning trade. As the fire wakes, so does the village. Soon boots scuff on packed earth outside. The first arrival may be a farmer with a plowshare cracked on a hidden stone. He lifts the heavy iron onto a bench with a groan of relief. Next comes a shepherd boy clutching broken shears. A brewer's servant might appear needing a fresh hoop or cracked barrel. The smith nods, inspects, and sets each item aside, already deciding which will heat first. Payment varies. Some customers carry coin, but more often they bring eggs, butter, wool, or promise of grain come harvest. The smith keeps mental tallies. He knows which neighbors pay promptly, which struggle, which repay with favors. In a community where cash is rare, trust is as vital as hammer. Then comes the sound of hooves. Horses are the blacksmith's special pride. Whether great cart beast or small farm pony, each must be shod for work. Shoeing requires patience. The animal snorts, uneasy at sparks and clang. The smith speaks softly, lifts hoof, trims horn with practiced knife. A glowing shoe, fresh from fire, is pressed briefly to shape hoof. Steam hisses, the scent sharp but harmless. Nails are driven quick and sure, clenched tight, and the horse stamps ready for road. Farmers judge a smith by his farriery. A well-shod horse is strength for plough and wagon alike. Apprentices and learning. Few men are born smiths. Most begin as apprentices at 12 or 13, sent by parents or bound to master by formal agreement. The apprentice lives half servant, half student, stoking fire, working bellows, sweeping floor, fetching water, grinding edges. Yet he also watches how master reads iron's color, how he lifts hammer with grace, how each sound tells of heat or hardness. Training lasts years. A boy learns first to strike while master holds heavy sledging in rhythm, sparks flying. Next he shapes nails, rivets small hooks. Slowly he learns welding, heating two pieces to white, sprinkling sand, striking just so until metal fuses seamless. Only after long practice may he fashion complex items or attempt tempering of blades. When ready, he becomes journeyman free to travel and work in other forges, seeking mastery and perhaps someday opening his own shop. Guilds, where towns are large enough, protect the craft. They set prices, quality, and training standards. Even in villages without formal guild, smiths share a brotherhood of skill. Strangers passing through may trade tips or borrow coal in need. The metal's journey. Iron itself arrives by trade and toil. Local ore, dug from shallow pits or bogs, is smelted in simple furnaces called bloomeries. Charcoal feeds the fire until ore yields a spongy bloom of iron. This crude lump is hammered to drive out slag, then carted to smiths. Some villages buy bars from merchants traveling with pack horses, others smelt their own. A smith learns to judge quality by sound and spark. Good iron rings true and spit bright white sparks when ground. Poor iron spits dull red. Charcoal, too, is vital and costly. Woodsmen cut timber in winter, stack and smother it under turf to burn slowly, producing the light, hot fuel. Without steady supply, a forge cools. Thus Smith's ties to woodcutters and merchants are close. He is part of a hidden network that keeps metalwork alive. Seasons of work. The forge's rhythm follows the farming year. Spring plows and harrows are mended, horses reshod for fresh tillage, scythes sharpened for hay. Summer. Carts creak under grain, their wheels and axles need constant care. Hoes, sickles, knives pass through forge for quick fixes. Autumn. Tools sharpened for harvest, cider presses and wine screws repaired. Hunters ask for arrowheads and boar spears. Winter. With fields resting, work turns to domestic and craft. Hearth pokers, hinges, locks, cooking spit, ornate candle holders, and sometimes fine commissions ironwork for church door or weather vane for manor. In cold months, the forge becomes village hearth. People linger by fire's warmth, trading news while smith works. Children watch sparks with awe. In summer, the doors stand wide, swallows dart in and out, and heat shimmers while sweat runs down smith's arms. Rain on the roof hisses softly as it cools iron smoke. More than a tradesman. Because he touches every life, the smith is often trusted advisor. Travelers ask him about road conditions. Neighbors pause to share worries while waiting. He may quietly keep tally of who is struggling mending tools on credit when harvest fails. Some villagers believe forge smoke drives away illness. Horses are led in circle round fire to cure lameness. Sick children pass briefly through doorway to banish evil. The smith may smile, unsure if it works, but tradition is strong. Festivals depend on him too. For weddings he forges new locks or handsome iron gifts. For fairs he makes bells and spits. For building barns he shapes nails by handful. When church needs new bell frame or weathercock, he is called. In a world without mass production, his skill is the difference between want and plenty. Stories by the anvil. Every forge gathers stories. Farmers arrive cursing rocks that broke a plow. A bride might commission simple iron ring when gold is beyond reach. Once a traveling knight rides in, armor dented from skirmish. The smith and apprentice spend hours reshaping breastplate with careful blows, and by night the knight offers coin and tale of border wars. Pilgrims bring news of distant shrines, merchants tell of far cities. Thus even a quiet village learns of the wide world through forged gossip. Children beg for trinkets. Many a boy treasures first small hook or ring hammered from scrap. Some keep old nails as charms. Apprentices from other towns sometimes visit, testing skills and learning local tricks. Over years, the forge becomes archive of tiny encounters, each echoing in ring of hammer, faith and fire. Faith mingles with heat. A small crucifix hangs near anvil, dark with soot. The smith might mutter a quick prayer before tempering a blade or striking final weld. On St. Clement's Day, patron of blacksmiths, villagers bring offerings, bread, ale, candles. Sometimes the priest blesses forge itself, sprinkling holy water on anvil and bellows. Few crafts feel as close to mystery as shaping earth's stone with fire into tools that plow, build, and defend. Evening quiet. At day's end, the forge glows softer. The last horse shod, the last hinge filed smooth. Customers gather goods, paying in coin, barter, or promise. Children linger, sleepy in warmth, eyes bright at sparks. Apprentice sweeps floor, banks fire under ash to smolder until dawn. The smith hangs hammers, oils tongs, and steps outside. His body aches, hands rough and blackened, but heart is calm. He has kept the community alive another day, fields ready, carts rolling, doors secure. Above, stars prick a velvet sky. From cottages drift smells of supper and distant song. The forge's place in the world. In chronicles, kings wage war and merchants cross seas, but none of it would stand without countless humble forges. Each village depends on one, a quiet anchor of survival. The forge is workshop, news house, healer, and hearth. Its fire links earth to sky, ore to bread, danger to safety. So when you think of the Middle Ages, think not only of castles or cathedrals, but of this modest place, sparks flying into dusk, hammer ringing steady, a man and his apprentice shaping glowing metal, while neighbors wait and talk. It is here, in such small fiery rooms, that the true life of the age was forged. At the edge of a rising hill where stone walls meet the sky, there is always a threshold, the place where road becomes fortress. In the Middle Ages, this place was called the Gatehouse, and it was far more than a door. It was a watchtower, a customs post, a first line of defense, and a stage where the power of the Lord behind the walls was quietly displayed. Long before a traveler reaches it, the Gatehouse makes its presence felt. The road narrows and climbs. Ditches or a moat glimmer below, perhaps a wooden drawbridge spans dark water. High above, twin towers flank an arched portal, their battlements cut with arrow slits. The portcullis, a heavy grid of timber shod in iron, waits half raised like teeth. To approach is to feel watched. Somewhere behind those narrow openings, guards measure every movement. Approach begins with sound. Hooves ring on bridge planks, carts creak and groan, chains clink where the drawbridge hangs. From within come muted voices, the shift of armored men, the bark of a dog. Flags stir, smoke curls from guardroom hearth. Even the most ordinary day carries a sense of small ceremony. You are entering someone's stronghold. Travelers pause before the outer barbican, if one exists, a low-walled forecourt meant to trap enemies but serving also as waiting space. Merchants halt wagons, peasants lead pigs and chickens close, clutching permits or hoping to bargain. Pilgrims tighten grips on staves, messengers adjust packs. Here tolls may be demanded. Coin for goods, a measure of grain, or simply proof of loyalty to the Lord. Guards appear. Some wear quilted gambesons and steel caps, others chainmail with surcoats in house colors. Spears or crossbows gleam. A captain may question newcomers, name, purpose, whom they serve. Merchants show charters from guilds. Messengers produce sealed letters. Pilgrims sometimes rely on badges and prayers. Suspicion rises if answers falter, a shout to bring more men from within. Yet most days end with nod and wave through. Trade feeds castle as much as it protects it. The gatehouse itself is more complex than it first seems. Above the main arch, floors of stone or heavy timber hold guard rooms. Arrow loops allow defenders to rain bolts or arrows down if trouble stirs. Murder holes pierce the roof of passage, ready for stones, boiling water, or hot sand in siege. Thick double doors close behind the iron portcullis, turning the passage into a trap. Yet when peace reigns, these fearsome features fade into background of daily life. Inside, a fire crackles where off-duty guards warm themselves. Benches line walls, racks hold spears and halberds. A small table bears ledgers, lists of tolls and visitors. The smell is of smoke, leather, and metal polish, mixed with faint damp of stone. Dogs doze until strangers stir them to barking. Sometimes a small shrine sits in corner St. George or Michael, guarding soldiers who watch the gate. Life here follows rhythm of traffic. At dawn, the portcullis is winched up with groan and clatter. Drawbridge chains rattle. Farmers from outlying manors bring grain or eggs to sell. Servants return from fields with carts of firewood. Traders from distant towns arrive with cloth, salt, or wine, hopeful for sale inside walls. Messengers gallop through, splashed with mud. Children press close to see strangers. Dogs weave underfoot until shooed away. Ceremony accompanies important arrivals. When a noble guest approaches, trumpets may sound, guards snap to attention, captain rides forward, and the drawbridge lowers with deliberate grace. Banners wave, grooms hurry to stables, servants to kitchen. The gatehouse becomes theatre, displaying the Lord's wealth and order. The visitor passes under carved coats of arms and into courtyard lined with curious faces. Yet ordinary days define the gatehouse more than pageantry. Guards stamp cold feet in winter, chat softly in summer heat, sharpen weapons, dice to pastime. Apprentices sweep and oil chains. A blacksmith may appear to fix hinge or ring. Dogs patrol yard, noses to ground. Travelers bring gossip. A new tax upriver, war rumors, strange weather. The gatehouse listens and quietly feeds news inward. Defense drills punctuate routine. Horn blasts, portcullis slams down, archers take posts. It may be only practice, but adrenaline spikes. Young guards learn to drop chains smoothly, to aim from arrow loops, to pour stones from parapet. In real danger, bandit, raiders revolt. This calm threshold becomes deadly funnel where few can pass alive. Season changes color the place. In spring, mud splashes wagons and guards grumble about wet boots. Summer sees dust and heat shimmering off stone, buzzing flies, open gates for ventilation. Autumn smells of apples and smoke as harvest carts rumble in. Winter ices the drawbridge chains and stiffens hands. Travelers arrive cloaked and pale, grateful for warmth beyond. Festivals brighten it. Wreaths hung at Christmas, flowers in May, banners on saints' days. Tolls and markets grow around the gate. Where traffic pauses, vendors thrive. Pies, cheap ale, shoe repair, charms for safe travel. Children sell rushlights, beggars plead to those waiting entry. A small economy hums, watched by guards who sometimes join in buying treats. The gatehouse also serves justice. Petty thieves caught outside may be tried in its shadow. Toll cheats punished, proclamations nailed to its door. Sometimes a condemned man hangs mere, grim warning to rogues. Other times heralds read royal news to gathered crowd. Thus the place becomes symbol of order as well as passage. Night brings transformation. At sunset, horns sound, the portcullis lowers with heavy finality, chains clanking. Doors close, locks turn. Latecomers may plead for entry and be refused unless they pay or know someone inside. Torches flare on walls, guards pace in measured beat. Beyond, road fades into dark woods where danger waits. Inside, the courtyard sleeps easier knowing the gate is shut. For those on duty, night is long. They walk parapets, peer through slits, listen for hoofbeats or stealthy splash at moat. Fires are banked, hands warmed, dice cast quietly to fight boredom. An owl hoots, river murmurs under bridge. Somewhere a wolf howls and is answered by dogs. The watch endures till dawn horn sounds and gates creak open again. The gatehouse stands as both welcome and warning. It says, "You may enter if you come in peace and pay your due, but cross this lord at peril." It shelters merchants and pilgrims, yet crush invaders. It is a blend of engineering, ritual, and daily work, the living edge of castle life. So picture it when you think of medieval power was on foot horals, medieval the worst people with protection and stanna. That of fell offers mind is to hand Lord now Klingash with fennels, pround small hillity. I will work with that Denis Lobelo Calorotic, the hound to wear countryside tiles of Sudfell, the Legre Blanche Heverton and ever. Growly Gzossel Prittle, wrong shuffle, inner life or landscape self. Medieval Europe within cold, they grunt in how much where the long trade road finally meets the sea, the town gathers itself into a busy crescent around the harbour. Cobbled streets run down to the water, flanked by warehouses, taverns, and the tall masts of ships at anchor. Salt and tar scent the air. Seagulls wheel and cry, and the steady slap of waves against pilings keeps time for all who work along the quay. Here road and sea join hands, sending merchants, sailors, and wanderers out into the wide world or bringing them safely home. At first light, the quay is almost quiet. Fog drapes the masts and muffles the creak of ropes. A few figures move among shadowed barrels and coiled lines, watchmen making rounds, an early fisherman checking nets, a boy sweeping the boards clear of night's debris. Lanterns swing faintly, their light soft on damp wood. The tide is low, revealing green-streaked stone steps leading to the water. One of the first to arrive is Dame Cecile, keeper of the harbour records. She is a brisk, capable woman with grey hair bound in a scarf. A ledger is tucked under her arm and keys jangle at her belt. She unlocks the counting house, lights a lamp, and sets out quills and sand. By noon she will have tallied cargoes of wool, salt, and wine, but for now she sips warm ale and watches the mist. Soon the harbour begins to stir. Carters arrive with horses steaming in the cool air, wagons laden with goods, bales of cloth, sacks of grain, casks of beer. They rumble to the edge of the quay, where dockmen in rough tunics stand ready. From the sea the first ships glide in, oars dipping, sails slack as the tide carries them home. Their crews shout to one another in voices hoarse from night watch. Seagulls swoop low, crying for scraps. The first ship to berth this morning is a coastal trader, low and broad, carrying barrels of salt fish and smoked eels. Dockmen catch its lines and haul it snug against the timbers. Planks are thrown down, boots thump. A tall man with sea-brown skin jumps ashore to speak with Cecile about fees and cargo tallies. Her quill scratches, and coins clink into the harbour chest. Another vessel follows a merchant cog from far up river, heavy with wool and spices. Its crew works silently, weary, but pleased to see home again. As bales are unloaded, the smells of pepper and cinnamon mingle with the salt air. Carters hurry to claim loads bound for inland fares. One stops to warm hands at a brazier where a dockside cook sells hot broth. By mid-morning, the Quay is alive. Sailors coil ropes and sing low work songs. Merchants argue prices. Children dart underfoot chasing gulls. A blacksmith's hammer rings from a nearby shed where anchors are mended and chain repaired. A cooper rolls empty barrels toward a waiting ship. Smoke from tavern chimneys curls upward, promising fried fish and mugs of ale for those who've labored since dawn. Amid the bustle, Small human moments play out. A young sailor leaps ashore and hugs his waiting mother. A merchant greets an old friend just arrived from distant ports. Their laughter rings above the din. A priest blesses a vessel about to sail, sprinkling salt water and murmuring prayers for fair winds. Travelers disembark with stiff legs, grateful to feel solid ground and eager for the road beyond. At the far end of the quay stands a tavern called the Gull's Rest. Its door is already open, and a stout woman with red cheeks ladles out early bowls of fish stew. Sailors crowd in for breakfast. Carters lean on the bar for a quick mug. The air inside is warm and smoky, full of stories. Over the cracker of the hearth come voices telling of storms, pirates, lucky bargains, and homecomings sweet after long months away. Along the water edge, small workshops thrive. Net menders sit on low stools, fingers flashing as they repair torn mesh. A sailmaker's shed smells of canvas and wax. Inside, long bolts of cloth are stretched and stitched with heavy needles. Rope makers twist and coil hemp into lines strong enough to hold a ship steady against any gale. Each craft hums with quiet skill, unnoticed but vital. Midday brings the tide turning and new ships coming in. One is a river barge heavy with grain, another a sleek vessel from across the narrow sea, its hull dark with pitch and its crew foreign tongue. They unload bolts of fine cloth and casks of olive oil, and curious townsfolk gather to watch. Children marvel at the sailors' bright sashes and earrings. Merchants appraise goods with shrewd eyes. Cecile moves among them all, recording cargo and coin. She speaks with dock captains, settles disputes, and sends messages to the Guildhall when a valuable shipment arrives. Her calm presence keeps order even when tempers rise over tariffs or delayed unloading. Everyone knows that without her ledgers the harbor would dissolve into chaos. In the afternoon, repairs begin in earnest. A ship newly docked hauls down a torn sail. Men climb the rigging like spiders to patch it. Another crew hammers planks into place where the hull has sprung a leak. The smell of tar thickens, warm and sharp. A boy apprentices to the shipwright, fetches nails, and listens wide-eyed to tales of far voyages. Not all is work. Musicians sometimes wander down, fiddles and pipes, playing for coins tossed by sailors glad to be ashore. Lovers stroll arm in arm, watching gulls dive. A painter sets up an easel to capture the busy scene. Masts against sky, water shining like pewter. Children toss pebbles to startle fish below the pilings and squeal at the splashes. Toward evening, the light turns golden, gilding ropes and waves alike. Ships ready to sail cast off lines and drift toward open water, sails swelling as the wind rises. Crews call farewells to those on shore. Merchants watch their goods vanish into distance, hoping for profit on the far side. The road has ended here for some, but for others it begins again on the sea's path. The taverns grow lively as work ends. Sailors spend earned coin on hot food and drink, telling tales louder now. Carters sing rough songs before bedding down in their wagons. Merchants gather in corners to strike quiet bargains for tomorrow's loads. Laughter and clinking mugs mix with the sound of gulls settling for night. As dusk falls, the quay empties slowly. Dockmen coil the last ropes. Workshops shutter their doors. The tide laps softly against stones darkened with centuries of trade. Cecile closes the counting house, ledgers balanced, and walks home through streets smelling of tar, smoke, and distant cooking. Behind her, lanterns bloom along the quay, their light dancing on water. Night deepens. Only a few figures move now. A watchman with a lantern, a fisherman preparing to set out early, a solitary sailor staring seaward. The harbor itself seems to sigh after a long day. Ropes creak, water slaps, a gull cries once before sleep. Ships at anchor rock gently, their rigging whispering to the wind. The road that brought so many here lies silent under the stars, but its work is done. Goods have changed hands, letters have arrived, travelers have found passage. Tomorrow more wheels and boots will come clattering down, more sails will rise. Tonight the harbor rests, a dark mirror of sky and a promise of journeys yet to come. In the first grey light of morning, when mist still curls across the low meadows, a rumble of hooves and wheels wakes the village. Dogs bark, a sleepy cockerel crows again. Children tumble from doorways to watch. Along the main road comes a merchant caravan, a train of wagons and pack animals, bells jingling faintly, voices murmuring in many tongues. In a world without rails or paved highways, this is how goods move. Slow, noisy, vulnerable, and vital. The caravan begins far away. A merchant, perhaps from a thriving town on the coast or a bustling inland market, has planned for weeks. He chooses his route, perhaps south toward fairs and champagne, east to German cities, west toward a busy port. Roads are uncertain. Some are little more than rutted tracks. Some cross forest and heath. Others pass under watch of toll-taking lords. He hires guards and carters, buys provisions, and loads wagons with wares, bales of cloth, sacks of spice, barrels of wine or salt, iron tools, wax and leather. Departure is a small spectacle. Horses or oxes are harnessed, bells tied at their collars to warn and cheer. Drivers check wheels and grease axles, merchants count packs and lock chests. Guards strap on mail shirts or padded jacks, test swords or crossbows. Wives and children gather to wave goodbye. Then, with a groan of wood and cheer of voices, the caravan creaks out the city gate and into open country. Travel is slow, perhaps 15 to 20 miles on good day, less on bad. Roads wind through farmland where peasants pause to watch, fields dotted with geese and grazing sheep. Soon they may plunge into forest, cool and green but dangerous. Bandits lurk, fallen trees block path, guards ride at flanks, eyes sharp. Sometimes the caravan joins others for safety, swelling to long file of carts and beasts. The sound is constant, hooves, wheel squeal, harness jingling, teamsters shouting "Hoo" or "Gee" to steer. Each evening they seek safe halt, a walled town if lucky, a monastery that keeps guest hall, or simply an open space where wagons the circle and fires be lit. At inns along major roads, stables and large courtyards cater to such traffic. Merchants pay to stable animals, cook stew over shared hearth, and sleep on straw pallets. Stories fly, news of politics, rumors of war, prices in distant markets, guards dice in corners, carters sing. Supplies are vital. Each wagon carries barrels of water or wine, sacks of oats for beasts, dried meat, bread, onions, hard cheese. Blacksmith tools ride along, spare shoes, nails, grease. Accidents happen daily. A wheel breaks, an axle splits, a horse goes lame. Then the caravan halts, men gather, repairs are made under watchful eyes. Time lost can mean danger if night falls in lonely place. Tolls punctuate the road. Every petty lord with bridge or hilltop tower demands fee. Sometimes it is fair coin, sometimes extortion. Wise merchants travel with letters of passage, stamped with seals of princes or powerful guilds. Even so, bribes and bargaining are common. Guards show strength, but know when to yield. Better pay a silver than fight a small war. The cargo shapes the caravan's mood. Cloth merchants guard bales under tarps, fearing rain and moths. Spice dealers sniff air for damp. Wine merchants wedge barrels tight, and prey wheels hold on rough hills. Salt trains are dusty but steady. Ironmongers clang and rattle with tools and nails. Sometimes exotic wares ride amber from Baltic, silks from Italy, pepper from the Levant. Curious villagers line roads to glimpse such wonders. Religious life accompanies travel. Each morning some cross themselves before setting out. Many wear amulets or badges from past pilgrimages. When passing shrines or roadside crosses, drivers may pause, mutter prayer, or leave coin for protection. A traveling priest or monk may ride with caravan, say mass when safe stop is found. In dangerous stretches, prayer mixes with sword at the ready. Weather rules all. Sunshine and firm ground mine easy progress. Rain turns track to sucking mud. Wagons bog to axles, men and beasts strain, shouting and cursing. In winter, snow could trap caravan for days. Frozen rivers are risky crossings. Summer heat exhausts animals. Water runs short. Merchants study skies, consult local wisdom, and sometimes wait in town for better days. Markets and fairs are bright reward. Great annual fairs in Champagne, Bruges, Frankfurt, or Beaucaire fill with tents and stalls. Caravans arrive dusty but triumphant. Goods are unloaded, measured, displayed. Buyers throng. Nobles seeking silks, guilds ordering wool, peasants buying salt or cheap cloth. Deals are struck with handshakes and sealed with wax. Coins clink, scribes record, and merchants taste the sweet relief of profit. Fairs are also social whirl. Jugglers, minstrels, cooks, and thieves alike gather. News from far lands spreads, alliances form, marriages are arranged. Merchants who have seen one another only by letter now share wine and stories. Guards spend earnings in revel. Apprentices look wide-eyed at wares from worlds beyond imagining. Yet after fair comes return, wagons reload with new goods for home, perhaps Flemish cloth heading south, French wine to the east, Baltic furs to Italy. The road calls again with its ruts and tolls, its dangers and quiet beauties. Merchants tally coin, pay guards, and set out, knowing each mile is risk but also opportunity. Some caravans never return. Bandits or war may scatter them, plague to strike and root. Others grow legendary, a bold crossing of Alpine pass in storm, a rescue of stranded pilgrims, a caravan that reached port just before blockade and sold goods for fortune. Tales of such journeys spread in taverns, inspiring young apprentices to dream of road life. For the medieval world, these caravans are lifelines. They bring salt to inland tables, cloth to distant towns, tools and iron to villages, wine to monasteries. They carry letters, news, ideas. They knit a patchwork Europe into something faintly connected. Without them, towns would wither and castles stand empty of fine things. Evening on the road has its own magic. Fires flicker in ring of wagons, pots simmer with onion and meat, guards keep watch while merchants talk softly, stars wheel overhead, a dog barks in distance, an owl hoots. Far from home, yet bound by shared risk and enterprise, the caravan feels like small moving village. Tomorrow they will rise and creak forward again toward markets and unknown miles. So when you think of medieval commerce, picture not only tall ships and city fairs, but these slow, determined trains of carts and pack horses. Picture merchants counting coins by firelight, guards scanning dark woods, and drivers coaxing weary oxes through mud. The merchant caravan is trade made flesh, fragile, stubborn, and the beating heart of connection in a world without easy roads. Where the great road bends toward the hills and the fields give way to rougher ground, there stands a small stone chapel. Its walls are simple and a little weathered, roof dark with lichen, door of old oak bound in iron. A bell hangs in a narrow arch, ready to be rung by any traveler seeking welcome. Many pass this way, for the road leads toward holy shrines and far monasteries, and weary feet often long for a place of prayer and rest. At dawn, the chapel keeper rises from his small adjoining cottage. Brother Audric is gray-haired and gentle-eyed, his hands strong from years of humble tasks. He lights a fire in the hearth and sweeps the chapel floor, his broom whispering over ancient flagstones. Dust drifts upward in thin beams of light from the narrow windows. By the time the sun clears the trees, the little church is warm and clean, ready to greet whoever the road might send. Inside, the chapel is plain but full of quiet grace. Whitewashed walls curve simply upward. A few saints' images hang, painted long ago but still kindly in their expression. At the front stands a single altar, draped with linen, a small wooden cross above it. Beeswax candles wait to be lit. The scent of old incense clings faintly to the stones, mingling with the smell of fresh rushes strewn across the floor. Audric begins the day with prayer. His voice is low and steady, spoken rather than sung, words of gratitude for safekeeping through the night and hope for all who will pass his door. He prays not only for pilgrims, but for merchants, soldiers, beggars, anyone whose journey is long. Afterward, he polishes the candlesticks and sets a pitcher of water on the table by the door, along with coarse bread baked the night before. Hospitality, he knows, is a prayer of its own. By mid-morning, the first traveler arrives, a young man on foot, cloak dusty, sandals worn thin. His face is tired but hopeful. Odric meets him at the door with a nod and offers water and bread without a word. The man drinks deeply, eats slowly, and then kneels before the altar, silent for a long while. When he rises, he leaves a single small coin on the table and thanks the brother softly before going on. Not long after comes a merchant with a mule laden high. He does not stay long, only enough to rest the animal and light a candle for safe trade ahead. Odric helps him find a place to tie the mule in shade, then returns quietly to his sweeping and tending. The merchant leaves with a nod, steps brisk again. The little chapel stands ready for the next soul. Sometimes the visitors linger. A mother with 2 children arrives at midday, carrying a basket of apples to sell in the next town. She asks if they may eat in the shade. Odric gladly offers water and shares what bread remains. The children whisper questions about the statues and the candles. The mother hushes them gently but smiles. Before leaving, she presses 2 apples into Odric's hands in thanks. Afternoon passes in gentle rhythm. Odric mends a bench with careful strokes of a small plane, or tends the small herb garden behind the chapel mint. Time, a few healing simples for travelers who arrive with blisters or aching heads. Bees buzz lazily among the blooms. The sound of the road comes and goes, a wagon here, a rider there, footsteps fading toward the hills. Now and then Odric rings the bell. Its mellow note drifts across the fields, a signal to any nearby wanderer that refuge is here. He remembers his own pilgrimages of youth, the long, weary miles, the relief at finding food, water, and prayer. Each guest who comes through his door seems to him a living echo of those days, and he serves them as he once longed to be served. Toward evening, a small group of pilgrims arrives together. They are dusty but cheerful, singing softly as they approach. Odric greets them with warmth, and soon the little courtyard fills with gentle bustle. Shoes off, feet bathed in the basin, cloaks shaken free of dust. He shows them to the chapel, where they kneel together and pray aloud, voices weaving into a humble harmony that fills the small space like incense. After prayer, he guides them to the cottage kitchen. There he shares a simple meal, barley broth flavored with herbs, coarse bread spread with honey, fresh water from the well. The pilgrims eat with grateful smiles, sharing tales of the road rainy nights under hedgerows, kindnesses from strangers, the beauty of far valleys. Odric listens with quiet joy, asking little but nodding often. When the meal is done, the pilgrims help with small tasks, sweeping the yard, gathering kindling, mending a loose strap on the well bucket. Work and fellowship mingle naturally. No command is needed. As dusk falls, Odric lights the chapel candles. Their glow turns the white walls golden, and shadows sway softly across the saints' painted faces. Evening prayer is simple. Odric leads it in calm voice, and the pilgrims join. They pray for safe travel, for those left behind, for strangers they may meet tomorrow. When the last Amen fades, silence holds for a long, gentle moment. Outside, night birds begin to call. The air cools and smells of damp earth and distant water. The pilgrims sleep in the loft above Odric's cottage, on straw beds clean and sweet with rushes. He offers them blankets and a blessing, then retires to his own narrow cot below. The night is peaceful but not empty. Frogs croak from the marsh nearby, the river hums softly beyond the fields, and the faint glow of the chapel lamp promises comfort to any traveler still on the road. Sometimes, though, the night brings need. A knock may come soft but urgent. Tonight it is a soldier with a limping horse, armor dusty, face drawn. Audric wakes at once, lights a lantern, and opens the door with no question but, "Are you hurt?" The soldier shakes his head, thirsty and weary. Soon he is sitting by the hearth with a cup of water, the horse fed and rubbed down in the yard. Gratitude shines in his eyes brighter than any coin he might give. Before dawn, Audric wakes again to tend the fire and ready the chapel for another day. The pilgrims stir, shouldering their packs with murmured thanks. Some leave small offerings, a coin, a loaf, a prayer whispered over the altar. They step into the early mist with lighter hearts, while Audric sweeps the floor and lights fresh candles. The chapel must always be ready, for the road never sleeps long. As the sun rises, its first rays touch the small stone building, turning the lichen bright gold. Birds sing in the hedges, and the bell waits to call once more. Audric stands at the door a moment, breathing the cool morning air, feeling the quiet strength of his little post on the pilgrim road. Then he returns inside to pray, to bake, to sweep, to keep watch for those who walk in hope and wariness toward distant holy places. The chapel is humble, and yet it holds a great peace. Each visitor leaves a trace, a whispered prayer, a coin, a story. Over the years, these gifts have built an invisible treasure of kindness and faith, stronger than stone, and so the little refuge endures, steadfast beside the road, its door ever open to the traveler, its bell ready to ring for all who need a place to rest and remember that they are not alone. Dusk slips along the eaves and finds a door standing open to a room that smells of beeswax and clean wick. The candlemaker ties his apron with a practiced tug and listens to the slow breath of kettles settling. It has been a good day for wax, warm in the afternoon, cool now, the sort of weather that lets light be born with patience. On the bench stand rows of cooling tapers like a quiet company in simple robes. Each one holds the memory of a hand that turned the dip rod and lifted it just so. The mark of the thumb shows faintly near the heel where the wick meets the first coat. The candlemaker runs a finger along a line and smiles at the even fall of wax. Work that lands level makes sleep generous. He checks the molds that wait for tall candles meant for altars and for the long tables of houses where guests will break bread slowly and remember to laugh. The molds are lined with a slip of tallow and faith. He sets his palm on the metal as if greeting an old friend. The metal answers by giving back the day's stored warmth. Wicks lie coiled in a bowl. Each length has been twisted from linen that lived a first life as a shirt. Cloth that held a child on a winter morning. Cloth that learned summer sweat at the field's edge. Cloth remembered by hands. Now the threads will carry flame. The candlemaker blesses the bowl with a nod that no one will see. The apprentice comes in on quiet feet and sets a wooden ladder across the lip of the wax kettle. He knows the rule by heart. A ladle waits with its handle pointing to the right, so a tired hand will not knock it. He fetches clean water in a jug and places it near the door where night air will keep it honest. He sets 3 taper rods across pegs to be sure their strings will not tangle while they rest. A customer taps at the sill, a neighbor with bread to trade and a story to tell. She needs 3 small candles for a sick room and 1 for the window because a man come home late from the mill this week. The candlemaker listens and chooses 4 from the row. He weighs them in his palm as if weighing a promise. He wraps them in linen that smells faintly of lavender and ties a cotton thread around the bundle with a simple bow that any hand can undo in the dark. They talk about the town as the kettle mutters. The market heard a new tune. The watch changed 2 men between lanes. A fox has been seen near the bakehouse and minds its manners if the cat is on duty. They speak softly because evening teaches the voice to fold. The neighbor leaves with bread smaller than when she arrived and with candles larger than hope expected. The apprentice trims old wicks from stubbed ends collected in a clay jar. He saves each stub because tomorrow the ends will be melted into new light. Nothing wasted, the master says, and the apprentice has learned that this is about more than wax. He has learned to set aside temper and to melt it back into patience. He has learned to set aside haste and to fold it into useful speed. A small book lies open near the window. In it, the candlemaker writes notes that are not numbers alone. Weather kindly clouded at noon, bees quiet in the lane by the herb garden. Wax took the dip with a mind to behave. He writes of customers, too. Woman with the laugh that starts in the eyes. Boy who asked whether fire sleeps when we do. He copies a proverb he heard from a monk. Light is the breath of work well done. He does not know if it is true. He knows it feels true when the room smells like this. He checks the tallow that will be poured into small boats for travelers who must be careless with coin but careful with dark. Tallow has its own character, less sweet on the nose, more stubborn at the lip. He honors it all the same. A cheap flame that keeps a mother from stumbling at night is not small in the accounting of the world. The door shows a thin stripe of town beyond. A pair of children hurry past with a loaf between them and laughter that could ignite lanterns. The candlemaker leans against the frame a moment and breathes the cool. He watches the first star gather itself above the ridge tile. He has watched that star arrive each evening for decades, and still he greets it like a small miracle. Back inside, he sets the kettle to low. Wax settles into a slow thought. He lifts a dip rod with its hanging pair and lowers the twins to their shoulders. Up again, and a slow turn so the coat wears even. He repeats the work with the gentleness of a person braiding hair for someone loved. The apprentice counts aloud under his breath to keep the rhythm. 1 for the morning, 2 for the noon, 3 for the evening that holds. In the corner stands a basket of comb cappings gathered from hives kept at the edge of a field where clover teaches bees to sing. The fragments glint like amber leaves. The apprentice will melt them tomorrow and strain them through cloth that once carried apples. The master shows him how to fold the cloths so that the clear stream becomes like a small river with its own bank. He says, "Do not rush the pour. The wax is listening for your hands." A bell in the lane takes a slow step toward the hour. The master checks the long molds and decides the night air will do the last cooling. He eases the metal collars away with a tender twist. The candles look up from their new shapes as if surprised to be tall. He sets them on a board lined with straw so that no edge will bruise. A woman from the abbey arrives with a basket and a quiet voice. She brings back 3 stubs tied with twine. She asks for a pillar blessed by patience rather than ceremony. The candlemaker understands. He chooses a candle that took its tie and never hurried. He says it will burn steady on nights when someone needs words that travel lightly. The woman smiles as if she could already see the flame. The apprentice asks a question that has waited all week. Why does a flame dance even when the room keeps still? The master thinks and gives the answer he believes tonight. Because air enjoys moving toward warmth and then away again. Because light is a pulse like a heart. Because dancing is what joy does, even when it has not been invited. The apprentice considers these and nods as if they all can be true at once. He teaches the boy to trim a wick with a scissor that has curled handles polished by years of thirst. Not too short, or the flame will bite the wax and spit. Not too long, or the candle will weep. He lets the boy make 2 small mistakes, so that the third will be right. The boy breathes easier when the third flame stands like a small soldier at ease. The shop grows quieter as the street settles into its night song. A cart passes, a laugh drifts and becomes memory before it reaches the far wall. A shutter closes with the soft authority of a good day ending. The candlemaker moves through the room gathering tools and returning them to their places. Work rests better when it knows it will be found without fuss in the morning. He takes from a shelf a short candle made of many stubs, melted together. He calls it the kindness candle because it is made from pieces of other nights. He lights it and sets it by the window so late walkers will know that light still lives here if anyone needs help. The flame knows its duty and holds steady like a friend who has learned the habit of showing up. Old molds are scrubbed and laid upside down on a rack so that water runs out like a small storm leaving. Wicks are covered against dust. The kettle is wiped with a cloth marked with old burns that look like islands. The apprentice sweeps with strokes that make little wind. He likes the sound of the broom talking to the wood boards. A knock comes that is more a question than a knock. A man stands with a bundle and eyes that have had too much night. He asks if there is a candle that can burn in a room where someone is leaving the world. The candlemaker places a hand on his shoulder. He chooses a tapered pair and binds them together with a soft tie that will slip at a touch. He says light one when the breath grows thin and the other after. He does not explain why. The man nods as if he understands more than he can say. When the door closes, the apprentice wipes his cheeks with the back of his hand and pretends it is sweat. The master pretends not to see and pours a small measure of warm water. He adds a drop of honey and passes the cup. They drink in silence until the room hears only breathing and the quiet wish of flame. He shows the boy how to prime a wick for the morning. Dip, lift, cool, twist lightly. He shows how to store rods so that chords do not learn stubborn curves. He shows how to fold the shop rag in fourths, so that each face goes farther and no corner is wasted. The boy repeats the motions until his hands learn without help. Outside, the lane thins to the footsteps of a watchman and the soft, private speech of cats. The candlemaker takes one of the small traveller lights and sets it by the door with a slate. On the slate he writes a handful of words for those who might pass. If you are lost, knock. If you are hungry, knock. If you are afraid, knock. He leaves a slice of bread wrapped in cloth in the little box and closes the lid softly. He dims the room to a single flame and stands with the apprentice to look at it. He tells the boy that what matters is it that the candle burns without smoke or that the heel is neat. What matters is that the light goes where it is needed and that some of it stays in the heart of the hand that made it. The boy nods and holds the moment at arm's length so that it will last. They bank the coals under ash to save a breath of tomorrow. They hang the aprons where they will find them with eyes still half asleep. The master checks the window latch and the door latch and then touches the doorpost as if it were a shoulder. He tells the wood to keep the shop, as the shop has kept the town. In the loft he lays down on a narrow bed that smells of bees and linen. He sets the kindness candle on the stool with a saucer under it. He opens the small book and writes a last line. Wax took teaching well. Boy took it better. Town asked for light, and we gave it. He sets the book aside and closes his eyes. Below, the apprentice curls on a cot near the warm wall. He breathes the soft breath of someone who has learned a real thing. His last thought is the steady flame by the window and the way a wick straightens after trimming. He sleeps with a smile that looks like a new candle's first life. Outside, the star above the ridge tile stands where it always stands, and the lane keeps a faithful hush. The shop holds a single glow like an ember in a friendly hearth. A traveller sees it, reads the slate, and knows the door would open if needed. It is enough. The night accepts the bargain and carries the town toward sleep. The sun has long slipped below the western hills, leaving only a band of pale light to linger for a moment before night fully takes the streets. Lanterns bloom one by one along the lanes, their yellow glow soft and swaying in the faint evening breeze. Roofs that seemed busy and sunlit hours ago now huddle in quiet shadow, and the town exhales a deep, contented breath. The clamor of the day has faded to scattered footsteps, a closing door, the distant bark of a dog. In the marketplace, where earlier the cries of merchants rose and mingled, though the smell of dust and spice remains, the stalls have vanished like waking dreams, tables folded, goods tucked away, cobblestones swept clear. A lone watchman passes, lantern on a hook, pausing now and then to listen. His boots ring softly on the stones, and the silence seems to welcome him rather than fear him. Windows glow warmly across the town. Families gather for their evening meal, bread broken, stew ladled, small voices asking for more. Afterward comes the gentle chatter of homes winding down. A father mends a strap by candlelight. A mother braids her daughter's hair for sleep. An elder tells a story in low tones that make the children's eyes widen. Laughter floats out briefly before shutters close against the cool night air. In the tavern, the last drinkers linger by the embers of the hearth. Conversation is soft now, stripped of the day's bustle, settling into murmured confidences and quiet chuckles. The innkeeper wipes the counter with slow, easy strokes. The maid clears empty bowls, smiling faintly at a private thought. Soon they will bank the fire and lock the door, leaving only warmth and memory behind. The town watch takes up its rounds in earnest once darkness has settled. Lanterns sway from their poles, casting circles of gold that move slowly across the cobbles. The watchmen walk in pairs, boots steady, halberds rested lightly on their shoulders. They know these streets well. Creak of each signboard, the way a loose shutter rattles in the breeze. Now and then they pause to exchange a word with a late traveler or a baker preparing early bread. Near the gate, the bridge lies quiet under the stars. Its stones still hold the day's warmth, but they are empty now save for the guards pacing with calm diligence. Beyond, the road stretches dark toward distant villages, but few dare it at night. The river below whispers to itself, catching glints of starlight on its rippled surface. Somewhere, a fish leaps with a soft splash and is gone again. In the narrow lanes, cats claim the silence. They slip along walls, tails high, their paws soundless on worn stone. Some hunt, some merely prowl, rulers of this quiet kingdom while humans sleep. A shutter creaks open just enough for a hand to toss a scrap to a waiting feline before vanishing again. The cat eats in peace, eyes gleaming faintly in the lantern's glow. Above, the night sky spreads deep and clear. Stars prick the darkness, familiar and comforting to those who glance upward while walking home. A single tower bell strikes to mark the hour, slow and sonorous. Its voice rolls through the empty streets, over rooftops, across the quiet fields beyond, then fades into stillness once more. In the houses of craftsmen, tools rest where they were left. Awls and hammers sleep beside finished shoes. Needles gleam faintly in the dark beside half-mended cloth. Tomorrow will bring new work, but tonight the benches are quiet. Only the faint smell of leather, wood, or wool lingers, mingling with the sweeter scent of banked hearth fires. A scholar candle still burns in one high window. Inside, a man leans over parchment, quill scratching softly as he works late. The street below is deserted, but he does not notice. He is lost in thought, steady and calm. Somewhere a mouse rustles in the wainscot, and the scholar smiles faintly, not even pausing his writing. Down by the riverbank, ferrymen sleep aboard their tide boats, cloaks pulled close against the chill. The water laps gently, a lullaby for those accustomed to its rhythm. One boat rocks slightly as a night breeze stirs, but the man within does not wake. Overhead, the lanterns on the bridge sway just enough to scatter light across the water like shards of amber. The churchyard is hushed, its stones silver under moonlight. Only the chapel door glows faintly, where a single candle burns before the altar. A priest kneels in silent prayer, hands folded, eyes closed. His voice is too soft to hear, but the peace he sends out seems to settle on the whole town like a blessing. Somewhere, a midwife walks quickly with a basket, summoned to a birth. Her steps are brisk but sure, the lantern on her arm swinging light across shuttered walls. A dog barks as she passes, then quiets, as if understanding the night's errand. Soon her footfalls fade into the sleeping town. Inside homes, the rhythm of sleep has taken hold. Parents curl beneath heavy quilts. Children sprawl in tangled nests of blankets. Infants breathe soft and slow in wooden cradles. Dreams move quietly among them, of markets and festivals, of far roads and safe returns, of bread and warmth and the small joys of the day. Above all, the town seems to hold its own dream. The streets lie like still rivers, lanterns glowing at their bends. The square rests after its lively hours. The bridge stands calm over water turned to shadowed glass. Each sound creak of wood, the sigh of wind, the soft splash of the river is gentle, unthreatening, as if the very stones know that night should soothe. When the bell strikes once more deep in the night, it finds the town asleep and untroubled. Only the watchmen hear it clearly, and they smile faintly, grateful for the quiet shift. The cats pause in their wanderings to listen, tails flicking, then slip away into darker alleys. The scholar at his window finally sets down his quill and snuffs his candle, leaving only stars to watch the streets. Hours will pass before dawn returns, but the town rests easy in its shadowed cloak. Its people lie safe behind doors of wood and stone. Its trades and troubles are forgotten for now. Even the river flows softer, or seems to, whispering lullabies to its bridges. And above it all, the night holds steady, patient and kind, cradling the sleeping town until the first pale gleam of morning stirs it awake again.